All right, so what's up, everybody? In this video or in this lecture, we're going to talk about how to write an introduction paragraph. Now, if you've been following along, we've talked about how to brainstorm for a 5-paragraph essay. We've talked about how to write a 5-paragraph essay, but let's break things down a little bit more and talk about how to write an introduction paragraph. Now, if you haven't subscribed yet to the YouTube channel, make sure you do that. And if you're watching, as per usual, the Prezi is not something I prepared. I will leave the link in the bio. Let's get started. All right. Ooh, I've hit the microphone again. Let me do this as quietly as possible. There we go. All right. Okay. I can do this. Can you guys see the Prezi? People in class. All right, fantastic. Cool. All right, so let's get started with how to write an introduction paragraph. Now, what you want to do with an introduction paragraph is get the reader interested and tell them about what it is that you want to talk about. So first and foremost, you want to get the reader interested so that he or she will continue reading. Right? So oftentimes you start like a YouTube video or you start something like that or a show, and within like the first 10 seconds, you're gone. That's it. You're out. Right? We do that when we're reading too, or when, basically when we're reading too. We lose interest if something is not interesting enough, or if something doesn't match whatever it is that we are looking for. Okay? So you want to get the reader interested so that he or she will want to read more. The second thing you want to do is let the reader know what the writing is going to be about. Yeah. So a lot of times, again, when you start watching a YouTube video, especially if it's informational, if it doesn't tell you what the video is going to be about, you're out, right? Same thing with writing a 5-paragraph essay. If you don't tell the reader what they can anticipate from your essay, then they don't want to read anymore. Okay. And the third thing you want to do is inform the reader of anything that they don't know. So information or backstory, or not necessarily example, but mainly like backstory information that they need to know in order to understand what it is that you are writing. Make sense so far for the people that are here? Give me a thumbs up. Yeah. Okay, perfect. And for those of you who are watching online, if it makes sense, let me know in the comment down below. If it doesn't, also let me know in the comment box down below, and I'd be happy to answer any of your questions. Okay. So how does the introductory paragraph or introduction paragraph look like? You got to think about it like an inverted pyramid. You start off with the hook. That's the main thing that is there. It's broad, it's general, and it gets more and more specific as you go down this triangle. Okay. So as you go down this triangle, you have the hook, and then the bridge, and then the thesis. So again, the hook is very broad. It's very general. It's not very specific. And the thesis is very specific towards the things that you are exactly going to talk about in this paragraph. All right. So we're going to start off with the thesis statement because, well, it's the top of our pyramid. And if you start off specific, then you can write things that are more general. So we're going to invert the pyramid and start from the bottom up, because if you're specific, then you can get bigger. But if you're too big, it might be a little bit harder. You can, but it might be a little bit harder to get to exactly what you want to say in the thesis. So what is the thesis statement? Well, the thesis statement is typically the last sentence in your introduction. It is the last thing that that people are going to read when they read your paragraph. And it starts off the next 3 body paragraphs. Okay. So a thesis statement really directly answers the questions or the question asked of you. It is the topic sentence in your whole essay. So basically, for every essay that you write, there is a prompt. This prompt asks you to write something. For example, in one of the essays that we did in class was about finding out who you are, or telling us who you are, or who you think that you are. So the thesis statement answers that question directly. It's not a general statement about who you are. It is exactly the things that you want to talk about. I am ambitious, I'm strong, and I am interesting, okay? If these are the three things, then this is exactly how you'd answer the question. I'm ambitious, I'm strong, and I'm interesting. And if you can tell this, I listed three things. And the reason why I listed three things is because these will become my body paragraph. Any questions so far? All right. So if you have any questions, in the comment box below would be the place to write them. If you're here, you have any questions, please ask away. That's what we're here to do. All right. So it is the one sentence that states the one topic, the topic, 2, what you will prove or your opinion, 3, how you're going to prove it. Okay. So again, it is the last sentence of your introduction paragraph. It tells us directly, it answers the topic directly, or the topic question or the prompt directly. And it provides 3 things, or one of these 3 things. It talks about the topic, what you will prove, and how you're going to prove it. Oops. Okay. All right. So a few things to remember. A thesis statement makes the claim that others might dispute. That means that other people might not agree with you. So if I say I'm strong, I'm interesting, what did I say? Strong, independent, and interesting. I think it was something along those lines. Whatever the case is, then other people may say, oh, well, Rita, you're not strong, you're not independent, you're not interesting, or whatever the case is. Obviously, in this example, I'm talking about myself, so people can't really tell me anything. But if, for example, you're talking about your opinion on abortion, some people are pro-life, some people are not. So they might dispute what it is that you are thinking of, or what you're trying to argue. So if your thesis simply states facts that no one would or even could disagree with, it's possible that you are simply providing a summary rather than making an argument. Okay. So if your thesis doesn't tell us exactly, doesn't allow for someone else to dispute or argue against what you're saying, again, if I say I'm nice, I'm strong, and I'm independent, then someone can make the argument that you're not strong, you're not independent because you do this X, Y, and Z. You are not interesting because you don't hike every Saturday. I don't know, whatever the reason could be, right? People can argue with me. If I'm writing about abortion and I say I'm pro-life, I am against people or babies being dying in the womb, then someone else may say, well, they're not a fully formed human yet, or whatever the case is. So in a thesis statement, someone can argue against you. Questions so far? All right. Since y'all are quiet, I'm going to assume that there are no questions. And in the comment box, again, you can feel free to ask away. All right. Another thing to remember, avoid announcing your thesis statement as a thesis statement. So in other words, don't write the purpose of this paper is to. Okay. So you don't want the content of your thesis should talk about your thesis statement, and not you saying this is my thesis, or the purpose of this paper is to argue that abortion is incorrect, or the purpose of this statement is to say that I'm interesting, I'm smart, and I'm fun, whatever the case is, right? I keep changing the 3 things, doesn't matter. Okay, so you want your content to say it. So you can say, I believe that being pro-life is an essential part of growing our society. And this is because, and then I can list my 3 things. That way, you know that it's my thesis because I boldly said my opinion. I believe that I am an interesting, fun, and exciting person. If the prompt is talking about me, as we did in one of our essays in class before. Questions? Okay. All right. So, example prompt. Out of the 21 full-length Disney Pixar movie, which one is the best? So there are 21 full-length Disney Pixar movies. Disney, obviously, you guys know who Disney is. Pixar is the animation department, I think, under Disney, or at least they partner with Disney all the time. And there are quite a few movies that you've probably seen that you think are really good. So the question here in our example is, out of the 21, there may be more, but out of the 21 full-length Disney Pixar movies, which one is the best? So in our argument, in our example, we want to say that Toy Story is the best one. So what I can say is, of all the Pixar films made, Toy Story is the best one because, among other reasons, it revolutionized the way films are made. So that tells us that answers exactly the question, which is, which one is the best? And then it tells us that this is the best, tells us why, and tells us what we're going to argue. So of all the Pixar films made, Toy Story is the best one because, among other reasons, it revolutionized the way films are made. So we're going to talk about Pixar. We're going to talk about why it's the best, and we're going to talk about how it revolutionized the way films are made. Is that clear? So we got all of this simply by writing the thesis statement. Does that make sense to everybody? Awesome. I see some thumbs, and I like seeing some thumbs. Okay. Next up, we have the hook. And if you want like an exact definition of what a hook is, it's this thing, right? This is called a hook. Okay, this is why the movie's called Captain Hook. Okay, actually, I don't know. I think it's called Peter Pan. Captain Hook is in Peter Pan, but this is Captain Hook. And the reason why is because he has a hook for an arm. But in any case, a hook is something that you hang something on, or you hook into something, okay? You connect into something. So the whole idea, the reason why this is called a hook is because you click on or you connect to the reader and you pull them in, okay? That's what makes people want to read more of your sentence, okay? So the first few sentences, the hook is the first few sentences that make the reader want to keep reading your paper. You should say something that will grab their attention and hook them in before you launch into what your paper is about. Okay, something interesting, something fun, something exciting, something, and it has to do with knowing your audience, but in any case, something that makes you want to read more. People who are here, has anyone here gotten an email from a company that they signed up for? Maybe like a Macy's or I don't know, a clothing store or anything like that? Of the people that are in class, have you ever gotten an email from a company?
Like for you to apply to the credit card?
Yeah. Like a credit card application. It usually tells you 25% off, right?
Yeah.
In the title of the email says 25% off your next purchase. Then you open the email and it's probably something along those lines where you've been pre-approved for our credit card. Sign up for our credit card today, right?
Yes.
Okay. So the way they get you to open that email is through a hook, and the hook is 25% off of your next purchase. Yeah. So that makes you interested in wanting to find out, how can I get more for my dollar, essentially, right? So that interesting idea is what keeps you reading more about what you see. That's what the hook in a sentence in an essay does. You hook people in, you reel them in, you make them want to read more. So because they know that you are their customer, because they know that you've already purchased stuff from them, they know that you're interested in what they sell. And so by saying 25% off, that's something that grabs your attention. So that's exactly what you want to do. But of course, based on the prompt and based on who you think is reading your paper. Okay. So what question are they asking? What are they interested in finding out? So you should say something that will grab their attention and hook them before you launch into your paper, what your paper is about. You need to get the reader interested in the topic. Now here we have, it says, do not ask questions. It's not a very strong hook, but for our purposes, it's fine. Okay. Sorry. Oh, I needed to sneeze, but it wouldn't come out. All right. So how can you start your hook? You can start with your hook with a definition. So give the reader a definition of a keyword related to the topic. Okay. You can start with a definition. You can start with a quotation. So you can find a quote by someone or something famous or from something you read that relates to the topic. Okay. I'm not a very big fan of starting off with quotes, but quotes can be good. A lot of times, if you're reading a book, I'm trying to see if I have any books on my desk. I don't. If you're reading a book, a lot of times the chapter, I would say like chapter 4, and then it will have a quote on top from someone else. And that's supposed to get you in the mindset of what that chapter is about. You can do the same thing for your essay. You can start off by a quote from someone or something that is famous that relates to your topic or the topic that you're writing about. Another way you can start is through description. So you can provide a brief description of a scene, person, object that appeals to the reader's senses. Okay. So a lot of times, if you're reading like a novel book, it will start off with engaging one of your senses, right? It can say, the smell of flowers was so beautiful in the spring, and I enjoyed their beauty as they blossomed through the field. Well, saying something like that gets people to imagine, right? It gets them to smell, right? So when someone tells you the smell of flowers, can you relate to the smell of flowers? People that are in class? If I say the smell was so beautiful, can you think of a time where you smelled the flower and it was beautiful? Yes, no, maybe.
Yes.
How are we doing? Awesome. Okay. So you do that because, thank you. You do that because it engages your senses. So if I said that the flowers in the field blossomed beautifully in the spring, I saw the red and the yellow and the pink and the white flowers all bundled together. Can you imagine these colored flowers? For the most part, yeah. Right? I don't know if someone wants to say something in class. Can you imagine it? Okay. So for the most part, yes, you can imagine these things. And the reason why, it's because it appeals to the senses. So your taste, your smell, your taste, your smell, your auditory senses, right? Your feel, all of these, you can use description to appeal to their senses, to connect with that person because you know that they felt something like this or they understand it. So that hooks them in, that makes them want to read more. You can also do surprising facts or statistics. So a fact not many people know about the topic, right? So that can be something that is very interesting to do. For example, if we are talking about, this is a pretty heavy topic, but if we're talking about pornography, we can say that pornography does to the brain what heroin does. And that's something very interesting. Not a lot of people know that pornography affects the brain the same way as drugs. So if you present that in your hook, then people would want to read more, right? Because it's a surprising fact or a surprising thing about the topic or a statistic that people don't know about. And that is something you want to do with your hook. You want to get the reader so interested in what they're reading that they want to continue reading your essay. So here are examples of hooks for the question that we had. So imagine sitting in a dark theater waiting for the film to start. Now imagine this is the first Pixar movie ever made. Right? I can relate to that, right? You've all been in a movie theater before. You've sat in the dark. You've waited for the movie to start, and bam, you're now connected to the reader, okay, to the writer, and you want to find out more. Another way of doing it is the Pixar movie, the Pixar film Finding Nemo is currently the highest grossing Pixar film to date. And this is Box Office Mojo is where they got the statistics. So the Pixar film Finding Nemo is currently the highest grossing Pixar film to date. However, it's not the most loved Pixar film. Okay, so even though it made the most money, it is not the one that people love the most. And that is a surprising fact. Does that make sense? My good people who are in class? All right, and again, if you're not in class, if you have questions, post it below. That's what we're here for. All right, so the last part in all of this is the bridge. So we have the hook, we have the thesis. Now we need to connect our inverted triangle. So once you have the first sentence of the thesis statement, you know where you're going to start and you see where you're going, right? You begin and then there's the end in mind. So you know where this is going to end. So now you just need a few sentences to bridge the gap. You need to connect the hook to the thesis statement from wide to specific. So what you want to do is connect the hook to the thesis. You can provide background information on what you're writing about, and you can link the reader to the topic of the essay. So clearly this is a picture of a bridge, but you want a figurative bridge. So you're not really drawing a bridge, right? Okay, so don't draw a bridge. All right, so what is a bridge? Well, you can have some background information, introduce the book, identify the author, briefly discuss the plot. These are things that you can add into the paragraph that people should know about and will help you go from the hook to the thesis statement. So this is where you state in your bridge the author, title of the book or the story you're writing about, a variety, a very brief plot summary and or important information. So let's say you're writing an essay about a book, then you give us a small information about that book. If you're writing an essay about a topic, like we said, abortion, then you'd give us a brief summary of what abortion is and where it started and how it started and so forth, right? But very brief, meaning very short. And you do this in order to give the reader a context for your essay, because maybe they don't know that much information. Maybe you need to fill in the gaps before you make your argument. Okay, so you assume that people don't necessarily know, and you add that information so that it helps them understand fully what it is that you are talking about. Cool. All right. Assume that there are no questions since I have not seen any questions. All right, so this is an example of the bridge for the example that they gave us. So Toy Story is the very first film made by Pixar. And along with sorry, and along with an all-star cast including Tom Hanks and Tim Allen. It made a big impact on computer animation since its release. The film is not only aesthetically pleasing, but the story about a young boy and the toys who love him hits right at the heart. Okay, so what that bridge did is give us information about background information about Pixar, because we don't know. Maybe I didn't know that Toy Story was the first Pixar movie. Maybe I thought it was a different one, right? However, Disney has been making movies for a really long time. So saying that to people would be good historical information about the topic. Telling us that it's an all-star cast, meaning that people that were in the movies, the voice of these characters were actually famous people, right? Tom Hanks or Tim Allen. These are people that are really famous. More background information. It made a big impact on computer animations since its release. So after it's been released, things have changed. Okay, because of it, things have changed. So it was an experiment. It did more. And this is something that not everyone knows. So background information for people who are reading this topic is very important. And the film is not only aesthetically pleasing, which means beautiful, right? Physically beautiful. You see it, it's beautiful. But it also, so it's not just about the animation, it's also about the story of a young boy and toys who love him. And it hits right at the heart, because a lot of us, or all of us, had toys when we were kids that we loved and we were attached to. Now imagine being loved back by those toys. So what it did in this bridge was give us background information, give us historical information, things that were impacted by it, and a little bit of a summary about what the story is about. What is Toy Story about? Okay. And that's something you want to do in your bridge between your thesis statement, your hook and your thesis statement. Okay. Big no-nos in academic essays. So in our classes, we're writing for academia, which means we're writing for school. So typically speaking, you don't address the reader or ask the reader questions. Okay. That is generally the case. Now, of course, for our benefits for ESL, we're also focusing on grammar. We're focusing on enhancing our writing and making sure that our writing is a little bit better. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to ask the reader a question. You don't want to use I or me. These are personal pronouns and they don't belong in your paper. So the thing is, you also don't necessarily want to use you. You can talk about a person in general, but you also don't want to use you. But we don't want to use I or me, because topics are bigger than us. Okay. Sometimes, yes, you are asked for an opinion and you can say, I believe in this or that. But for the most part, the topic is bigger than who we are. Of course, in our essay before, when I asked who do you perceive that you are, or who do you think that you are, of course, in that case, you would answer I or me. But in most cases, in academic essay, we try to avoid generally using I think, I believe, I do, or alternatively, me. Okay. And never state something that is not common knowledge without providing evidence. Okay. That means that if I'm telling you, like earlier, we talked about statistics and pornography and the brain, and how if you take a brain scan, how it would look like if someone's watching porn and compared to drugs. Well, most people don't know that. So I need to provide proof that this is correct. So then I would say this experiment, and I would name the experiment, proved that pornography has the same effect on the brain as heroin. Okay. And then I would cite who it came from. Okay. However, if I tell you that the sun is out, well, you don't need proof that the sun is out. I don't need to quote the Weather Channel. Okay. This is more of common knowledge. So if it's something that is not common knowledge, then you have to tell me where you got where you got your quotes, okay, or your information. Okay, so let's look at our paragraph all together. Okay, so we started again. We started with the hook and we ended with the thesis. And then in the middle, we added the bridge. So let's take a look at it together. So the Pixar film Finding Nemo is currently the highest grossing Pixar film to date. However, it's not the most loved Pixar film. Toy Story is the very film that was made, the very first film made by Pixar, and along with an all-star cast including Tom Hanks and Tim Allen, it made a big impact on computer animation since its release. The film is not only aesthetically pleasing, but the story about a young man and the toys who love him hits right at the heart. Of all the Pixar films made, the Toy Story is the best one. Among other reasons, it revolutionized the way films are made. Cool. So this is it all together. We started with the general statistics, right? General information or surprising information. You would think that being the greatest Pixar movie would make sure that it made the most money, but hey, surprise, it didn't make the most money, but what did it do? It had the biggest influence. And then even though people loved it, it was not Nemo. Even though people liked Finding Nemo, it was not the first movie that Pixar made. Toy Story was. And then we add more information until we get to the thesis, which links all of it together. That tells us, and that answers the question exactly. It is the best one because it revolutionized the way films are made. Does that make sense? My beautiful people. Okay. So,
Yes.
which do you write first? What do you guys think? Do you write the thesis first, the hook first, or the bridge?
Thesis.
We write the thesis first, and then we write the hook, and then we write the bridge. Okay? So the thesis answers the topic exactly. If you know exactly what you want to say, then you can be creative. Okay? It's like if I tell you, let's paint this, right? If I say, hey, let's paint this mug. Well, you need the mug before you can paint, right? Without the mug, you can't paint. Without the thesis, you don't have an essay. So you write the thesis first, and then you can be creative. And then you bridge the gap between your creativity and what it is that you're talking about. Okay. So which element is the most important part of the whole essay? What do you guys think? What's the most important part?
The hook.
Not the hook, the thesis. The thesis is the most important part. The hook gets us interesting, but the bulk of the essay revolves around the thesis. So the entire essay is about the thesis. The thesis is the topic. Cool? Okay. And which element of the intro links the broad to the specific? What do we think? Which one is the link of the three
thesis?
Of the three things? Which one's the link?
Bridge.
It's the bridge. Exactly. So the link between the thesis and the hook and the thesis, the broad and the specific, is the bridge. All right. So that is okay. So that's that for this that's that for this lecture. That's that for this video. If you have any questions, you guys, please make sure to write it to let me know. You can, if you're here, obviously ask me any questions that you have. If you are not watching live, ask away in the comment box below, and I will be more than happy to answer any of your questions. So for those of you who are watching, I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.